Hello, Sandra here. As a child, have you ever dreamt of getting behind the scenes of a huge ropeway with many moving parts? Well, in this video, you're gonna get a tour through the Gondelbahn Flaschen, where we're gonna do exactly that.
Gondelbahn is German for gondola ropeway, and this is a particularly illustrative one because it is an older model with a crazy number of moving, rattling, rotating, humming, shifting, shaking components that all interact with each other, forming a well-orchestrated mechanical symphony. I couldn't get enough of watching it, so I asked the operations manager if I could come to take a few shots. Turns out it was my lucky day. He not only explained to me everything from top to bottom, but he also let me deeply behind the scenes, allowing me to film at places a regular passenger could never access. We were standing up there when he even radioed to slow down the rope for me to get a better shot. So sit back and enjoy this video as a VIP tour through this most amazing machine. You will rarely hear me say this, but for once I actually borrowed a car and drove there. Flaschen is located in the Alps in Valais, Switzerland, next to the famous hot springs of Leukerbad. The ropeway was built in 1995 and consists of two parts with an intermediate station in between. The length of both parts totals about 2.3 kilometers and the altitude ranges from 1500 meters to 2300 meters above sea level. Once arrived at Torrent, you'll find yourself at a peaceful Alp that's not particularly busy at the summertime. People are doing the usual alpine activities like taking a weekend hike, some with a dog, hanging out, enjoying the sun, or just going for a bike ride. Things are looking differently in the wintertime when Torrent is a very popular ski and snowboard arena, but we are in September and things are calm. Arrived at the top station, I meet Yannick Moerma, the operations manager in charge of all things ropeway here. He explains to me every single bit, and I hope I can pass his information and explanations as correctly as I possibly can. Here's the basics. As the name suggests, a gondola ropeway consists of small cabins, the gondolas, that are transported on a rope. When entering a station, each gondola is detached from the rope and decelerated. When it arrives at the platform, the doors open to let people out and in while moving slowly. If there are bikes or sledges to carry, the personnel attaches or detaches them during this phase. Once the slow track is over, the gondola is accelerated to match the speed of the rope and then reattached to it to continue its journey. Stop. This is probably where I should tell you that I might have been lying all along. In fact, we're not looking at one, but two ropeways connected by a middle station. So here's a poor schematic drawing of the two cycles. These are two ropeways that are actually completely independent. One set of gondolas cycles through the lower ropeway, while the other set travels the upper one. Remember that at every wheel, the gondolas are detached from the rope. The two wheels in the middle are in the same building and people can exit one ropeway and immediately board the other. Now we add two red lines representing an extension of the slow itinerary. As you can see, the gondolas arriving at the top of the lower ropeway are now transferred to the bottom of the upper ropeway and vice versa. Now we have a single ropeway with a middle station. So is Flaschen a single ropeway or two independent ones? Well, it's actually both. The extension represented by the red lines can be enabled or disabled by shifting a switch, kinda like a railway switch. Under normal operation, Flaschen operates as a single ropeway and both sections are synchronized in speed. When one slows down or stops, the command is relayed to the other as well and they act as a single machine. However, in case of storm or a technical fault, if one section cannot operate, the switch is flipped and the other section can operate independently. So by now you probably got an idea of how many moving parts each section consists of. I was extremely amazed to hear they're almost all driven by one single motor. So let's talk about power and not in the political sense. 3 times 400 volts electrical power is supplied from the left and first passes through a series of electrical filters that protect the power grid from any electrical noise generated by the motor. These 3 boxes are massive capacitors designed for 144 kVAr. The second door hides a thyristor, which transforms the AC current into DC. Modern ropeways run directly on AC, but this older model is still using a DC motor. The process of turning off a relay of such a big motor usually generates a huge spark that will bolt out of the cabinet, but the wide round thin covers prevent this from happening. Yannick mentions that such systems are no longer being built these days. This third cabinet further contains a thermal relay which breaks the circuit if there's too much current flowing. The 3 tubes here are actually resistors for this circuit. The power is finally sent to the motor. Despite of its massive size, this is a perfectly regular DC motor and runs with coils, a technology you maybe already know from your latest Arduino project. The motor also acts as a brake and a generator. It recovers energy and feeds it back to the grid whenever there are more passengers going down than up. Also, 90% of all times when the ropeway needs to slow down or stop, the braking is done entirely electrical. Cooling of the motor is provided by this filtered air inlet which blows large amounts of air through the motor. Following the motor shaft, the next thing we encounter is the first hydraulic brake. Hydraulic pressure keeps the brake open during operation, so if anything fails, the brake will be closed by a spring automatically. This is the hydraulic unit that controls the brakes and the emergency propulsion, but more on that propulsion later. The next stage in the pipeline is this transmission. It runs so hot that it has its own cooling system attached. At the time of shooting the footage, the ropeway has just started, but the transmission is already warm to touch. And here's the whole thing again with sound.
Zuerst die Königswelle kommt hier hoch. Ja. Das Gelbe, was du da siehst. Jawohl. Dann nachher das Rad durch. Ja. Oben ans Rote ist noch das Planetengetriebe.
The planetary gear acts as another transmission, further increasing the torque and allowing a reduction of the size of the kingshaft. It drives the big wheel, powering the rope and transporting all the gondolas in the upper section. Directly connected to that wheel is the secondary hydraulic brake. If something serious goes wrong, the hydraulic pressure drops and this emergency brake brings the ropeway to a rough stop. Also, there is a centrifugal switch that opens when the wheel spins too fast. Imagine a situation like in the country of Georgia, where a siege ropeway went backwards with insane speed. If this situation was about to develop here, the centrifugal forces at the edge of the wheel would exceed the switch's rating and it would flip. It would open the hydraulic system and pressure would drop, so this would cause the springs in the hydraulic brakes to force them closed and the ropeway would stop immediately, effectively preventing such a disaster. But what happens in case of a power outage? Then this diesel motor is used to power the hydraulic pump, which is in slightly lighter blue. The black tubes lead up to these yellow hydro motors. While disconnected under normal operations, the levers can be used to connect them to the big gear on the yellow wheel, and then they can power the ropeway until everybody is off. On this ropeway, this is intended as an emergency propulsion, and it's only used to unload all the gondolas. Then they shut off the ropeway until the power is back. Now let's get to the fancy stuff.
Das ist ja voll auf dem Seil gekuppelt, gell? Ja. Dann geht es vorne, ist die Kuppelstelle, das ist das Flamme ausgerichtet. Jetzt ist das Flamme getrennt vom Seil.
So far, this is what you see by observing closely. But now Yannick leads me up that ladder and he's about to blow my mind. First of all, I realize that all of these moving parts are connected to the main wheel and there are no additional motors. The same holds for the bottom station that has no motor at all. It is the rope that transfers the power from the upper station to the lower. The motor moving all of this is over a kilometer away, and there is no need to sync the motor speed of the two sister stations. They are mechanically connected and physically part of one single insane machine. This is incredible. Close-ups time. Note how each wheel is geared to run a little bit faster than the previous one, accelerating the gondola. Wow, this is awesome! I'm a 10-year-old boy again. Now let's look at the arrival. The clicking sound is produced by a spring in every wheel. While more modern ropeways have those wheels all the way through, this older model has a belt taking over the gondolas. More precisely, there are two belts, and the top one is slightly faster than the bottom one. The reason for this is to re-clock the gondolas, so that their intervals are continuously corrected and the distances are kept. The clocking can be defined by setting this variable transmission. Note how the top belt slightly catches up and grabs the gondola, defining its pace. When clocked perfectly, the gondola is captured at the middle of the track, but about a meter of deviance can be tolerated. This is a relic that does not exist on newer ropeways. Now, if you've seen my previous video on ski lifts, you know that I have become obsessed with clamps last year. This is a particularly cool clamp because it is mechanically detached from and reattached to the rope at every station. In summertime, the ropeway only runs at 2.5 meters per second, which is half of its maximum speed. So we should be able to take a relaxed, closer look. Holy crap! This is only half speed? The whole framework is shaking. Let's look at it again. Maybe we can catch a glimpse if we repeat it. Okay, this is really hard to see. As a passenger, the ropeway seemed much slower to me. Seeing my desperate attempts with my fingers only centimeters away from the clamps thundering by, Yannick grabs his radio and does something incredible.
Ja, diese Schiene da, das ist die Türmechanismus, das ist die Kuppenrolle auf und abdeckt. Ja, aber das Klamm auf und zudeckt, weißt du? Ah, das ist die da hinten noch? Die Schiene da. Aha, aha. Jetzt drückst du zu, zack, jetzt ist es zu, jetzt ist es frei. Das Klamm auf und hin. 0,3. Jetzt kommt die 0. Aber ein bisschen schneller, ein bisschen mehr abholen. Das sind die Kupferrollen da. Und dann die Klammer nach hinten.
I have no words for this. He slowed down the whole ropeway twice just to let me film these clamps. I'm overwhelmed and deeply grateful. Here's the moment again when a separation occurs. Look how the clamp suddenly stops while the rope keeps moving. And here is a shot at 2.5 meters per second, normal summer speed. The video, however, slowed down to 1/4 speed. I tried to retract my hand and the camera at the very last moment. The sheer power of this ropeway is scarily impressive. As a child, I was, like many, scared to be squeezed by the doors of the gondolas. So how do these work? Again, Yannick patiently explains and demonstrates, using a parked gondola. The wide wheel below the clamp is connected to the doors through a wire. By moving it up, the doors are first unlocked and then opened up. This is inverted by pushing it back down, after which the doors are safely locked. This is what happens every time the gondola enters or exits the station. But what happens if a child gets trapped between the doors? Hidden under the floor plate, there is a spring that is connected between the wire and the doors. Here is a shot from a dismantled gondola undergoing maintenance. This long spring buffers the traction from the wire, and while the doors do squeeze, the force is well calculated so that nobody gets hurt. But the gondola would then be traveling with the doors open, and passengers would be in risk of taking a lethal fall. This is why this red stick is placed very closely to the closed doors. If the doors do not close for some reason, then they touch this stick and the sensor triggers, bringing the whole ropeway to an emergency stop. In addition, to verify that the doors are not only closed but also locked, this red plate is placed at the height of the wide wheel, triggering an emergency stop if the wheel is higher than normal. A hand in the doors is enough to trigger the emergency stop. This rarely happens in summertime, but in winter, passengers tend to get their ski sticks stuck between the doors, triggering the emergency stop even multiple times in a busy day. Yannick then takes me to the control room where the staff member we heard on the radio is working. This panel shows the speed for each section and whether the ropeway is producing or consuming energy. This computer screen visualizes the whole ropeway. Gondolas can be flagged using this yellow button, and then they will show up in red on the computer screen, causing an acoustic signal to sound when they enter the next station. This is useful, for instance, when baggage must be unloaded. This is the speed potentiometer that was mentioned on the radio communication. When the wind speeds exceed the value on the left in kilometers per hour, the speed of the ropeway must be limited to the value on the right. Next, we see the remote control system that is used to synchronize both sections of the ropeway. The entire communication and monitoring goes through this panel. There are two lines connecting the stations, the switch line and the phone line. The entire communication, including emergency stop, goes through the phone line, as well as, well, the telephone. The switch line is a safety wire that is under constant voltage. If the voltage gets too high or too low, an emergency stop will be triggered. This happens, for instance, if the rope derails at a mast. Here is how this works.
Jetzt Seil draus drückst hier drauf, aber fest, dass das hier, was die Sollbruchstelle ist, schlägt sie ab.
Und dann ist der Kontakt.
Dann geht der Strom nicht mehr durch, oder?
Next to the control room, there is a repair and maintenance shop. The store allows a forklift to transport gondolas into the shop. Every year, 16 gondolas are completely dismantled into parts. These boxes contain dismantled clamps from the gondolas undergoing maintenance. All of these parts are shipped to the ropeway manufacturer Garaventa, where they will be thoroughly checked for microcracks using X-ray technology. While the high-tech checks are done by the specialists, all the regular maintenance and even disassembly and reassembly of the gondolas are done by a team of 5 working here under Yannick's supervision.
Aber ja, wir sind eher 5 her, für gleiche Zeit. Ja. Wir müssen heute Wochenende arbeiten, einfach an die Bahnläufe müssen arbeiten.
Wie viele Leute sind da in der Regel?
2. Eines geht das Wohnen weg. Ja. Wenn es der Techniker mal nicht kommt, dann. Ja. Das ist eins, gell? Dann tust du einfach nicht die Revision machen. Gell? Aber wenn der Bändler nicht kommt, dann. Ja, das Bändler sollte immer laufen. Ja, schon. 7 Tage pro Woche. Du musst schauen oder ein Lied organisieren, selber gehen. Dann kann ich nicht selber Bändchen fahren.
Du kannst jede Aufgabe übernehmen?
Ja, dann hätte ich schon alles können. Ja.
After this, Yannick is taking his lunch break, so I bid him goodbye and take the ropeway back down. Yannick has informed all the others on duty about my video project, and they generously let me go and film everywhere. Here is the middle station again. Note how the upper ring of the lower section is skipped. The ropeway is operating in joint mode, and the gondola is directly transferred through the lower ring of the upper section. The staff member on the bottom station even turns on the light for me and asks me if I'd like to also film the garage. Well, of course! This mechanism transports the gondolas inside the garage. As the ropeway only goes half speed during summer, only half the gondolas are running and the others are currently in storage. This garage can hold all 100 gondolas of the ropeway.
Die kommen ja hier, das Gelbe ist ja die Weichen, oder? Ja. Das Gelbe ist vorne und dann kommt da mit. Dann geht es bis hinter nachher, oder? Jetzt sind 50 Gondeln im Moment drin, oder? Ja. Also mal Juchen drauf gehen. Und dann lässt du wieder raus, dann mit dem Takt genau stimmen, oder? Der Takt da vorne mit diesen Zähnen muss stimmen, mit dem, oder? Und du hast so einen Stab hoch und dann schauen, dass es stimmt, bis es stimmt. Und dann kannst du es rauslassen, oder? Und dann sind wieder 50 Stück Fuß. Und dann tut es da oben immer vorne transportieren, oder? Und das müsste ich mal filmen, wenn es funktioniert. Das ist sehr interessant, oder?
But sadly, this will be for another day. I will have to get going, and the last thing I'd like to show you is how incredibly quiet this huge machine gets when they shut it down for the summer's lunch break. Sleep tight, beautiful giant. Gondola ropeways only have a life expectancy of about 30 years and Flaschen is already 26 years old. By 2030, this kind of ropeways will have become a rarity. I hope you enjoyed this experience as much as I did. I owe a huge thank you to Yannick and his staff. This video was only made possible thanks to the enormous time they offered me and all of their patient explanations. It was a real adventure. Let me know if you like this kind of video. Maybe I'll get lucky again and I'll be able to film the garaging procedure of a ropeway or seat lift someday. In any case, there are so many amazing things in this world and who knows what my next video will be about. In the meantime, keep your eyes open and enjoy your life. Goodbye and see you next time.